So, stage two of the upgrade for my bedroom has been finally completed after like a year, I think. Something to that effect. Yeah, it's about a year. I spoke about this a little over a year ago, and it's looking pretty good. Although I've got some new shadows and shapes that I'm having to get used to. It's kind of driving me crazy. So, yep, that's coming along pretty nicely. Also, as a quick acknowledgement, even though it has nothing whatsoever to do with this video, I do want to at least acknowledge the mind blowing announcement that came out of the 2022 Super Sentai series, Avatar of Sentai Dan Brothers. Dan Brothers or Don Brothers? I think it's Don Brothers. Anyways, the announcement that came out, this would have been about a week ago, so it would have been, um, I think it was like on the 25th. It was like April 25th, 2022. There was and I'm just going to quickly address it here, even though it has nothing to do with this video, but like the reason why haven't done like a first impressions of the Dan Brothers toy, or I'm sorry, Don Brothers, the Don Brothers toys, the reason why I haven't done it is quite frankly because I wasn't very enthusiastic for it. But what happened earlier this week just blew all of my expectations completely out of the water. I did not see this one coming, and the more I learn about it, the more excited I'm getting. I mean, really, really excited I'm getting. So I just want to at least acknowledge that it happened around like a week before this video was filmed, even if I'm not going to be talking about it right now. So, holy shit, Don Brothers, oh my god, oh my god. Alas, so bittersweetly, the LuPat catch-up now comes to its inevitable conclusion, at least as far as purchases that I've made as of the first quarter of 2022. This will be the roundup for everything that I now have from Lupinranger versus Patranger. Now, when I started this whole thing in, I believe it was it was either late, yeah, it was late March. When I started with the versus changer, I pointed out there's going to be one long video, really big video at the start, a bunch of little videos in the middle, and then one really big video at the end with the conclusion and everything like that. Well, this is that big concluding video. It didn't quite play out the way that I thought it would, though, because I ended up spending, I thought it was going to be something along the lines of, well, here's this new versus vehicle that I've never had before, and then here's one that I already had, but I hadn't gone into such depths at that point. And, here's the wraparound. Here's what it looks like. Here's the thing. I'm going to plug it into the Versus changer, and here's what it sounds like when you put it in. And I thought that each of the individual Versus vehicles were going to be 10 or 15 minutes, and then that would be it. And then I got it in my head for whatever strange reason. I was going to do both the Lupinranger and the Patranger versus vehicles at the same time in the same video. Oh, how long could it possibly last? Oh, let's try 45 minutes, 25 for one, 25 the other, and then like a 7 or 10 minute conclusion for both. And I ended up, so like instead of doing like an hour and a half for the versus changer, which by the way, yes, was absurdly long, but I did have a lot of things to say. You know how I operate. Instead, I ended up spending, who knows how long talking about the individual versus vehicles. So, having gone through the process now, I realized that this final big video is actually going to be way, way bigger than I had envisioned it would be a little over a month ago. But like, Ava, why would you split the video up like this? And like, what kind of big thing did you get? Well, I got a pretty big freaking box here that I got to deal with. And no, it's not the ex-emperor. No, it's not the ex-emperor. I promise you, it's not. I'm not that brain dead. This one actually took me quite a while to make up my mind, and in fact, was the very first Versus vehicle that I purchased at the begin. It was in like January. Yeah, it was in either January or early February when I kicked this whole thing off. It's like this was the thing that kicked the whole LuPat catch-up off. Okay, but ironically, it would end up being the last thing that I would cover. But then, like, while this was ordered and in the mail, I started thinking about all the other Versus vehicles, which I've already gone over to this point. The other, was it 3 or 4 that I've picked up at this point. That includes, but it's not limited to the Versus Changer as well, by the way. But this one was a big one. I always knew this was going to be a big one. But I also tried to find ways around getting this one or avoiding getting this one. But 4 years later, 3.5 years later, I couldn't avoid doing it this way. So this isn't quite what I was expecting, but I knew what I was getting myself into when I got it. What am I talking about? I am talking about the big box set of the Siren LupinKaiser and Victory LupinKaiser. Learning from past experiences, I'm going to be breaking this single box down into 2 separate videos all by itself. The first video is going to be covering the Magic Dial Fighter and Trigger Machine Splash, which is what you're watching right now. And then the second video, where are my fingers? There, my fingers. The second video is going to be covering the 2 combined forms involving the Victory Dial Fighter and Trigger Machine Siren Striker. I could have ended that a little more gracefully, but whatever. I'm sick and tired of this intro. Now, I don't really have any problem with the Siren LupinKaiser and Victory LupinKaiser big box set. Like, I've got no problem with it. But the problem is I've got a bunch of duplicates that are already in here that I've already purchased. For example, let me think here, the Good Striker. I already have a Good Striker. I bought it 4 years ago, So... And then I already have a Siren Striker. Good Striker, Siren Striker. Oh, I never thought of that. So I'm actually going to have a couple of duplicates when it comes to this box. Like, I tried to purchase the Magic Dial Fighter and Trigger Machine Splash. I did try to purchase them separately, but I couldn't find any for a reasonable price. So I ended up going this way instead. And of course I opened the wrong side of the box. Here is... There's the duplicate. What do you call it? Good Striker? There's the duplicate Good Striker right there. Sitting on the bottom, and I can't get it back in. Why? That's why. But I'm not going to be opening it in this specific video. Instead, I'm going to the... Oh, that's weird. It's kind of a big open space right there. Whatever. Oh, perfect. Perfect. Okay, here we go. Here's the... Is this Splash? Yeah, that's... Or no, this is Magic. I'm sorry. It's Magic in the backside. Yes. So that's that. And then... Is that Splash? Yes, that's Splash right there. Okay, cool. Alright. Do I really need to pull the instruction booklet? Nah, I think I'm good. But it's so strange how Magic and Splash are both in these hollow cardboard frameworks or whatever it is. It supports, big corrugated form fitting, whatever it is. Like, they chose to do it this way for some reason. I don't know. Hopefully I can just yank on this and it'll just pop right through. Of course, it comes in a single piece, thankfully. So, yep, there it is. Oh, hello. Hello, Magic. How are we doing? This is not an airship. This is a submarine. And I've known that since 2018 when it came out. Just saying. When it came to Magic, honestly, the biggest thing that put me off was the weird left hand, which was shaped like this. It was shaped like this for some reason whatsoever. And also, I can't snap my fingers with my left hand. I can't do it very well. So that's the reason why I didn't get this back in 2018. No, it was okay. I mean, I didn't really have any big objections that I can remember to the Magic Dial Fighter. Didn't. I think kind of the issue is it's called the Magic Dial Fighter. What does Magic have to like everything that all of the Versus vehicles up to this point have had kind of a practical application to them, swords and shields and whirlwinds and cranes and drills and scissors and all kinds of things like that. So it's been kind of a practical application. But when it came to Magic, that's kind of nondescript. I don't care, whatever. And believe it or not, when I bought this set, I had not seen the episodes in which it had appeared. You know how I said earlier that I had deliberately, or I had stopped watching Lupinranger versus Patranger as I was beginning the LuPat catch-up. Well, I did that for two reasons. One, so that stuff could arrive in the mail, and two, I wanted to be able to experience these things as if it would have been in 2018 when when I would have seen it for the first time. Let's see, does this go in the front or in the back? I don't know. Gee, maybe if I had the instructions in front of me. So these go this way, right? Yep, 180, and then those go there. Okay. So here we have the Magic dial fighter, and yeah, it is a submarine. You cannot convince me that this is not a submarine of some kind. And yes, I know I've got these turbofan engines sitting right here. Yeah, that's not the problem. And oh, by the way, it's got the cockpit thing down there. Wait a minute. Bandai Plex, why does this have two cockpits on it? You've got the cockpit up here, very obviously where it should not be, by the way. But then they have a fake, the actual cockpit sits right down there, and it's covered up by the reader rail thingy or whatever it is. Bandai Plex, can we actually no? It would be Plex. Bandai just designs the toys, but they don't design the appearance of them. Yeah. What? Why would you? Okay. So, yeah. Yeah, it's a submarine. Submarine confirm. But it doesn't look horrible. Well, it kind of does. I mean, it's got. Actually, I'm sorry. I'm supposed to be showing the left side because the left side's always the pretty side. Um, this thing is distracting, and I'm only just now, for the first time in 4 years, noticing that the is this pagoda gondola. I'm sorry, the gondola for the cockpit or whatever it is actually down here when it should be up here. God damn it!
20 minutes later.
Call my way to take care of something that was already in the proper place. This is a bad day for me to be doing this. I like when before I started, I was like, no, I'm not in the right mood. This is not a good time to do this. But like, no, Ava, you got to finish the LuPat catch-up. You got to do it now. And I've been interrupted and been doing bad takes over and over for the last hour combined. So, where was I? Oh yeah, submarine confirmed. Yeah, by itself, it's not really all that interesting until you watch the show itself, and then you find out that this thing is covered in homing missile ports. And I can actually see them right now. There's like how many? It's like six. Yeah, there's six of them right there, and then there's another six of them right there. This thing is covered in missile ports, and when I saw that in the show, I'm like, oh hell yeah, multi-missile spam. I am a huge proponent of Itano Circus. So like yeah, when I saw that and I'm like, okay, yeah, no, I'm convinced this is actually good. So that's why I got this thing. I certainly didn't get it based on its looks. I mean, it's just kind of this big white thing, and just it's okay. There's some. I mean, don't get me wrong. There's nice detailing on here, but just I suppose the thing that bothers me is, let me double check. Crane and drill. So this is kind of be the second example where it doesn't really seem to fit in with the entire versus vehicle line, and knowing all the things that the versus vehicles can do. We've got a blimp, we've got a dirigible, we've got a it's called a Zempla. No, it's not. So it's a dirigible. Dirigible. And I understand why they went with an airship like this, because this is it's like the 1800s or whatever it was, and again, it was a very fashionable thing to travel by airship in the 1800s, and there's that romanticism of the era when how do you say his first name? Arsène Lupin, where he's running around in France, and he would have used, they might have had airships like this around that time, except they didn't. So like that is why they used an airship like this. It's because it's a romantic version of the type of air travel that was like futuristic or whatever it is at the time that Lupin was doing his thing. He's not a real character. He never was. He was never a real person. He's a character in a series of books or something like that. French books, not Japanese. So, anyways, that's why this was included. And to be fair, I actually do like the detailing of the turbofan blades on the. I know you can't see them well. The turbofan blades there look pretty nice. Obviously, they don't turn, but they do look nice. The weird thing though is because like the turbofan blades are, or the turbofans themselves are solid and they actually do look really nice, but then they're completely hollow on the opposite side. And when you look at the Magic Dial Fighter from the front, or rather anything other than the back, it turns out it's just hollow. You know, they couldn't take the time to like, I don't know, maybe put like some pieces that they could glue in so you'd have turbine blades on both the front and the back. No, it's just hollow on the inside, and then the blades are visible on the back. So that's kind of the thing that was confusing me earlier. I was like, okay, do these go on the back or do they go on the front? No, they actually go that way. So yeah, they're hollow from a front view, from the kind of sort of side view, and uh, like I said, the details are nice and techy and whatever it is, but it doesn't need the cockpit there because the cockpit's actually on the underside, and the underside is not painted whatsoever. So So I mean, it doesn't look terrible. It's just it doesn't quite fit in with the Lupinranger thing because I mean, again, the airship or the dial fighter, obviously, it doesn't fit in with that. So that's one reason why I didn't get it. The other reason, it's like I'm not opposed to an airship. I mean, oh, by the way, this is the first kind of blimp-shaped Super Sentai vehicle ever, unless they did something in the earliest Super Sentai series back in the 70s, literally the 19 mid to late 1970s, unless they did something there with a vehicle that was a blimp or a balloon of some kind, I'm blanking because I don't know I don't know the earliest history of Super Sentai, or at least I don't know it that well as much as the kind of later ones. So I'm drawing a blank. I do know like there were no robos or anything or accessory vehicles or anything associated with an airship. So this is the first time where that's happening. So, yay, we get blimps in Super Sentai, woohoo! And it's just kind of it's okay, it's fine, it's whatever. I suppose I should get onto the gimmick at some point here. Turn the thing, and that pops open, and these snap. Yes, these snap to either side. Oops. Oh, I forgot that there's a question mark. I don't know if you can see it. No, you can't see it, but there's actually a question mark molded into the front of the, I don't know what this is. I guess it'd be a mace. Is that what it is? I don't know. And no, you cannot have the thing extended and have these in place at the same time. That's a very light snap. Oh, it just fits with friction. Okay, and then this snaps together? Not really. Yeah, you can peel this apart with a fingernail if you want. There are no like tabs or anything to hold these in place. It's held strictly by friction. Pop. I'm gonna have to rewatch. I actually saved the episode where Magic Dial Fighter makes its debut. I thought it was a good episode. So, or at least the debut of it was pretty good. Kind of the problem with it being a light wave accessory vehicle is that it doesn't get its due nearly as much as earlier accessory vehicles do. It's just kind of the way that it works out. So like you only see it in the blimp form like one time up to like the earlier yeah, because I just now finished episode 42. Yeah, I just finished episode 42. So, and it's only you've only seen the missile thing like one time, and that was it. So, I think it actually would have been better if, like, instead of having this mace thing come out, if it just been a giant warhead for a missile or something like that. I think that would have been a little more appropriate. Oh, did I just do that? I did. Okay. Hmm. Okay. I'm not sure there's much else I can say at this point, so let's move on to the versus changer. Now, since I got this, I have successfully learned which way to hold this thing when I'm putting a versus vehicle on it, depending on if it's a dial fighter or a trigger machine. So for dial fighters, hold on to it like that, and then you want to put it flat. You want to point it downwards like that, or at an angle like that, as opposed to with a trigger machine where you want to keep it up like this and then insert it downwards. And the reason they do it that way is because when you finally get it into position, when you get the proper versus vehicle into position, if you insert a trigger machine like this, then you're in the perfect position to be able to turn this downwards like that. Grab on, and then look at that. You're holding it in the proper position like that. As opposed to a dial fighter, where you want to hold it this way, and then you're in the perfect position to grab it like this and then turn like this. So that's why they do it the way they do it in the shows, because they want to make certain that you have this, you're holding the versus changer either up like this, so you can bring down like this, or you're holding down like this, so you can bring them down like this, and then turn it accordingly. Good to know. So anyways, magic! Magic? They say magic? Like automatic? Magic?
029 Masquerade Kaito Boost
Where's my Magiphone? Where's my Magiphone? Screw the Magiphone. I almost wish that they would use the kind of the chimes sound or whatever it is that they used in like Magiranger. It's just kind of what? It's okay, whatever. Magic is a weird one. It's almost ill-defined. Like each time they use the magic dial fighter, it does something different each time. It's weird. Oh, that reminds me.
5 minutes later.
I totally forgot to hit record just now. Oh, and I was so enthusiastic just now. Okay, so in the previous video, not the one with the hammer dial fighter, but the one with the was it the scissors and blade dial fighters, and then there was also the trigger machine, crane, and drill. I pointed out that I was disappointed that there wasn't more roleplay weapons or specialty weapons that came out of LuPat. And one of the reasons for that is pretty much all that they regularly use is the versus vehicle, and then I'm going to turn this off. What they do is they use the versus vehicle, or they use the versus changer, and then they plug a versus vehicle into it, and then that's supposed to be the specialty weapon. And yeah, I agree with that ordinarily. But the thing about Lupinranger versus Patranger is that they also include in the show exclusive scale weapons for the Lupinranger and the Patranger to use. Now, the reason I bring this up is because the Magic Dial Fighter's weapon that is given to the Lupinranger is the Magic Arrow, which is a bow. Whether it's a long bow, short bow. I think it'd be a short bow, whatever it is. But anyways, when I saw that in the show, and believe it or not, I actually didn't know that was in the show until I actually started watching it. Like for 4 years, I was completely unaware about the Magic Arrow, and then it just shows up. And I'm like, oh wow, that I actually do like those. That's pretty cool. I do like the thing. Gosh, I wish that they had made one of those things back in 2018. I would have gotten one. If they could only have designed it in such a way so that the you could hang on to it, and like the Falcon Summoner, 18 or 17 years earlier in Gal Ranger, if they could have found some way to get another drawstring or a piston of some kind on there, that would have been kind of neat. I can't remember, did Ninja? Yeah, Ninja came out before Patranger, didn't it? And so you had the Karakuri Hengen, which would, did pretty much the same thing, had a drawstring kind of sort of thing on it. And so I'm thinking to myself, wouldn't it have been interesting, and I said this in the previous video, where like with the Scissors and Blade Dial Fighter, they turn into a shield and a boomerang. Not a sword and a shield, but they turn into a boomerang and a shield. Don't ask me why. And then the crane and the drill transform into the crane and the drill as a replacement arm. Like the PatRanger's arm literally gets replaced by the crane and drill trigger machines. Don't ask me why, it just does. Like it should have been like a giant over-the-shoulder bazooka is what it should have been. But the way it turned out, or maybe they could have done, I don't know, they could have done something other than what they did. The whole arm disappears and gets sucked into the trigger machine. I don't even. What I thought would have been interesting is if Bandai and Plex and Toei wanted to put an emphasis on roleplay toys as opposed to accessory vehicles at the time. What they could have done is for Magic Arrow specifically, or no, I'm sorry, for any of these, it would have been like a 2-foot version. I mean, it still would have been small because any role play toy is usually going to be no bigger than that. If you want to talk about a sword or a staff or a bow or something like that, it's usually no more than about 2 feet. That's 18 inches, 2 feet is usually what it does. Which, how can you fight that? It's meant for 4 and 6 year olds. Stop complaining. Anyways, although with the versus changer, it fits my hand pretty doggone well. Anyways, what they should have done for LuPat is they should have had it set up so that each roleplay toy, themed, specific roleplay weapon, would have a slot somewhere on it, and that slot would accept an associated versus vehicle. Oh, that wasn't okay. Would have accepted an associated versus vehicle. Now the catch is, and this is actually something that I have encountered in the past, the idea of teaming up an accessory vehicle with a roleplay toy, use your imagination folks, at the same time can be a bit risky. And the example I can think of off the top of my head would be in Tokyuger, where they had the common sidearm for the Tokyuger that changes into a sword, which sucks. It's not like, I know what it is. It's like it's a schedule board or whatever it is, like a train station. How the hell would you associate that with a blaster? I don't even. So, anyways, the reason I bring it up is because I don't give a crap about the roleplay toy from Tokyuger, but it does come with the Shield Russia, which I do want to get, but I don't want to wait. What I don't want to do is waste the money on the roleplay toy that I don't want to get. So it's like, okay, how do I scour through online auction houses or whatever it is and look for just the Shield Russia that does not come with the roleplay toy? So it can be hit and miss. Like in this particular case, I'm complaining about that. Like, why didn't they design the magic arrow to include the magic dial fighter already in the same box? And then it occurs to me, well, if the magic arrow, in this specific case, if the magic arrow had been bad or dumb or stupid or whatever, then it would have been like, do I really want to spend $40, $50 on a roleplay toy just to get the accessory vehicle? No, the answer is no. I wouldn't want to, So then what the alternative would be is you create your roleplay toy and it has a dummy version of whatever the accessory vehicle is, and then you can either use the dummy fill-in that's included with the roleplay toy, or you can take that out, stick it back in the box, and then have the actual separately purchased accessory vehicle that you can then slot into the roleplay, and you can use it accordingly. Now, a case of where they did that, this pops apart really easily, that's annoying. An occasion where they did that correctly, ironically, is in Goseiger. The Gosei Blaster, which is currently sitting on the shelf over there. The Gosei Blaster came with 2 dummy headers that didn't have any function to them whatsoever, but it was enough that you could plug it in and then it would make the associated sound even if you had not purchased the associated DX, what were they called? Gosei machine. That had the header that you wanted plugged in. So that would actually be the example of what I'm using right now. Have a fake version that's the same size, same scale, but just lacks the function of an accessory vehicle that goes with the roleplay toy, And then you can pick and choose if you want it or if you don't want it, you know. So that kind of satisfies both camps. The irony is like the dummy version would not be able to interact with the reader rails or whatever it is, you know. So that would be the difference. Like if you got this and the role play toy, but you don't have this, then you'd be in a bit of a problem. But anyways, yeah, whatever. I'm getting way distracted. Gosh darn it! I wish that they'd made a magic arrow. That would have been really neat. I would have liked to have had that one. I have to turn this on again. You see, this is why I'm separating the magic and the magic dial fighter and trigger machine splash in their own separate videos, is because I've had that long description that I just did and it would have ruined everything. So yeah. Oh, really? Now, why would they do it that way? Oh. I just noticed, unrelated to sound effects here. I just noticed that the I'll just say that the top front half of the non-moving part of the Magic Dial Fighter is actually a large panel sitting on the top here. It goes from obviously the separation point here to just behind this small fin right here. So there's actually a panel right there. Oh, I know why. I know why, because you could not, or you might not be able to mold the cockpit from the side and then mold it from the other side without having a big line run down the middle. Like there might have been some detail that would be missing on the top here if they hadn't made a separate thing for that. Okay. Alright. Okay. Alright. Sorry, I got distracted. Anyways, time for the summon! Now, in that particular case, he goes, magic! Which is something that they don't always do. I don't have a dial fighter readily available. And this is something that I've pointed out a number of times already. Usually when you put a dial fighter in there, it doesn't go, in this particular case, it does not say, yellow! It just goes, yellow! And that's it. Well, in this particular case, it goes magic, and then pew. So I was actually not expecting it to say magic. I was actually expecting it just to. And here it is again, turning the dial. Not only do you not get any new sound effects when you turn the dial, but also notice that the thing does not pop open. Let's see, I'll pop it open for you. It's still retracted, but it's not coming out. So, I'm going to have to look for the place where it deliberately holds that in place, and I just found them. This is something that I've kind of not, I don't think I've highlighted it up to this point, but there's a button here, there's a button over here, and basically when the verses change, it presses down on those two things, or actually it presses on either one. You can see right there. Now all of a sudden it's not. But as soon as I let go, so that's how trigger machines specifically do not pop open or activate their feature when they're plugged into the versus changer. So preparing for LupinKaiser Magic, what a name, is actually a little more involved than what you usually get. Ordinarily, you just turn the dial and then you stick it on there and that's the end of it. But with the Magic Dial Fighter, it's actually slightly different, and it'll explain why these things move around the way they do. So we're going to take that off. That just tabs off. That just tabs off. Okay. Okay, that just comes off with no effort. Okay. So now we have the rest of the versus vehicle, and then we've got this extra bit right here. Let's see, so we get this prepped, snap those to the sides, and does this actually snap into place? No, it does not. Okay, so it's just always on a spring. Okay, whatever. And there we have just the Magic Dial Fighter attached, but this is not LupinKaiser Magic, because for the first time ever, we're going to do a head replacement as well. This is the first time when it comes to LupinKaiser specifically where the red dial fighter is not involved in the combined form. He's still present in the cockpit, which, by the way, the cockpit is still in here. I didn't think of that until just now. This is weird to me. So we're going to take this thing, which is the back half, and flip these around like that. And then we've got this panel right here. It flips down like that. Here's a fancy little bow tie right here. And then we're going to stick this right, come on, right there. Is that it? Oh, there's two hinges on the back there. That's weird. Bow tie confirmed, by the way. That's so weird. I would have thought that would have fit in the slot there better. Really? Gee, if only I'd pulled out the instructions, I wouldn't have a question about this. You see, the problem is the packaging is specifically for Siren LupinKaiser and Victory LupinKaiser, that I do not believe it actually shows LupinKaiser Magic. No, it does not. Oh my gosh, I'm actually going to pull out the instructions in order to verify if I transform this thing correctly. Well, I mean, I've got it in the right place and I've opened it up properly. It's just a question of if it's supposed to be up like this or it's supposed to be a little lower. With a bow tie, obviously you want it close to the neck, but I've got a couple of choices here. So I'm actually going to check the instructions. Didn't think I was going to have to, but... Oh, what? It's a good thing I did. There's actually 3 separate instruction booklets in here. There's 4 different booklets in here. One's for the, is this for Magic? No, let's see. That's for Siren, and that's for Victory. There's 5 separate instruction booklets. That's funny. Yeah, they want it to stick down like that. Okay. Hopefully I don't need to open those again. But it's good to know that they're... Because like this box set contains things that you can ordinarily purchase. You can purchase all of these versus vehicles separately. It's just for convenience, if you want to get the big final Kaiser, LupinKaiser Ultimate Combined form, then you want to do it this way. And by the way, a couple of minutes ago, LupinKaiser Magic. And with a brand new head design, by the way, and a brand new chest. He's looking a little empty down here. So the question I had with the instructions was, how do I want to place the bow tie? It's like, because is it up like this? Let's see, how do I do this? Is it up like this, or do you want to stick it down? It was kind of a question of what angle is it supposed to be, like this or like this? Question is, it's supposed to be like that. You're supposed to push it down as far as you can. So this is supposed to be at an angle like that. It is not supposed to be like that. Instead, it's supposed to be like that. It's supposed to rest flush like that. Because again, you've got the little bow tie right there. So, and the helmet is, what the crap? What the crap kind of helmet is that? And don't get me wrong, I like it, but it's all feathery and it's got fins sticking out in really weird places. And ironic thing about it is, like, if they'd engineered this a little differently, we could have had a head swivel. I can understand why we didn't, but still. One of the things that bothers me about LupinKaiser Magic is that the reader rail for Good Striker is exposed right here. Yeah, it's just because ordinarily the red dial fighter has it all covered up, but now it's totally exposed and like feeling slightly underdressed, if you want to put it that way. Oh yeah, I forgot. And then you have to manually open these 2 things here, and then we get this this thing, this very, very weirdly designed hand, this left hand, which is, I think they were trying to deliberately be ambidextrous with it, but I'm not certain. Like, I guess they were trying to play it off as like it could be either a left hand or, because like the way it's set up is like this, and you know the little finger is pulled back to be parallel with the thumb. So like it doesn't, it's like, it's not like this. I mean, it's supposed to be like a magician with a gloved hand holding out. That's what it's supposed to be. But the way that they shaped it, it's like a claw with the thumb up, and then the little finger sticks up. So it ends up like that. Oops, I'm sorry. It ends up like looking like that. And that's one of the biggest. And also it's really hollow on the underside, on the back of the hand. That's what it looks like. It's all hollow and crap. So I'm not entirely certain why they made it ambidextrous. Like, considering this is only being used, it's only being used by the Lupinranger, why would it be anything other than a left hand? Because there's no, as far as I'm aware, there's no occasion where the Magic Dial Finder ends up on the right hand, on the right side, right side of Good Striker. It never goes to the right side. So, like, why not just have it permanently be a left hand? You know, have it be like this, as opposed to sticking that finger up like that. I don't know why they did that. And it's also not that the hand is even capable of holding anything. It's not. So that's like yeah, there's spacing between the fingers here, but that's not the same thing. So honestly, I don't know why they did it that way. I mean, if it's always going to be a left hand, then always make it a left hand. Maybe Plex intended for it to be on the right side at some point, and that's the reason they did it this way. I don't know. Also, coincidentally, we've got a wrist swivel, which very lightly snaps into place. So, yeah, Magic LupinKaiser technically has wrist articulation. Technically. Not that it can really hold anything. Actually couldn't. I don't know. You know that phrase about holding your head in your hand? Give me a minute. Ha! I did it. There you go. Holding your head in your hand. There you go. I'm so smart. The hand can come off. Why would it come off? Where'd you go? You're way under there. Oh boy. So the hand is actually on a peg, which makes sense. You would expect it to be made of a single piece, but I didn't know that it could come off. I don't know. So it's held in place strictly by friction, and it just popped out all by itself. So, oh yeah, because the piston that comes out of here, that also is molded out of a single piece. And I fully anticipate that the doors, the two halves of the sphere here, they're just tabbed, or they're just yeah, they're just tabbed in there as well. So yeah, be aware that these blue doors can in fact come off. So be aware they will come off if enough pressure is put on them. However, the larger white colored doors do not come off. Those are always part of it. So be aware that the hand can come off and the two blue doors can come off. So there you have LupinKaiser Magic. I can't snap with my left hand. Why would they make this left-handed? I can't even be cool like LupinKaiser Magic. I can't. And so here we have Trigger Machine Splash. Trigger Machine Splash. Yep. Yeah, I don't know why, but this is actually the reason why I didn't get either one of these back in the day. Because lest you forget, I've only had this for about a month and a half as of recording, and I've never had this. But the reason I didn't get either one of them is because, well, they're literal repaints of each, or they're repaints and remolds, except for the center sections. and these arms that I'm going to be demonstrating in a moment here, they're identical. The bottom half from this joint down is identical. They're exactly the same. Even the little whatchamacallit on the top here. Although oddly, oh wow, I didn't know that. Why would they do it that way? Oh, hello. No, I was wrong. I was wrong. They're not remolds. Or they're not repaints. Oh, I was wrong. The canopies are different. Oh, they're different. Okay. Okay, I'm going to revise. I'm going to revise my statement here. So the kind of control section, those are different. Okay? As is the tire guard or whatever it is in the front here. Tire guard. What is it? What's that called? Fender? Is that what that's called? The cover over the wheel. Those are different as well, but everything else is the same, right? Yeah. Okay. So in other words, the wheel. So the wheel and all this black stuff here, the trigger, and then this back section here are identical on both of them. That section's identical. Everything else is remold. Okay. Huh. Those are not as close as I thought they were. Because now all of a sudden the front grille, where the air intake or whatever it is, that looks the same. The badge is in the same location. The front lights are the same. But the canopies are unquestionably different. I'm only just now realizing that they're not quite as remold as I thought they were. So the wheels are the same, the undercarriage is the same, trigger is the same, this back section here is the same. The headlights are the same. Is that the same? No, it's not the same. Okay. So yeah, the headlights and the little PatKaiser symbol underneath the headlights, that's the same. But the whole rest of the cockpit section is different. Oh. Boy, they went through a lot of effort on that. I thought I would have, up until a few minutes ago, I would have sworn that these were exactly the same, but it turns out they're not. I didn't know that. That's actually kind of a good thing. I'm glad that they're different from each other. But I suppose I wish they'd been more distinctively different from each other. I think that's part of the problem with it. There's a little ladder on either side of the cockpit of Splash. There's a little ladder above the wheel well. Wheel well, that's what it's called. Above the wheel well, there's a little ladder that leads up into the cockpit, which is absent from Crane. Huh. And the crane arm, yeah, right, crane arm. The Splash arm, or whatever it is here, is molded completely differently. That is different. The arms are two completely different things. Even the back half, which caught me completely by surprise with the crane, because I didn't know up until about a little over a month ago that could happen. And I wondered to myself, oh yeah, that must be able to separate because the back half of the arm at the joint part is going to be repeated here. No, that's not the case at all. Turns out that this back half here is completely different as well. You squeeze on it and wow, that actually shot up a lot more. Calling me surprised. And let's just get this out of here for now. Oh, I know why. Yeah. Gee, maybe I should pull out the instructions to check on this one. Oh, yeah, there it is. Oh, okay. So it looks like while it was in the box, this was stored incorrectly. What it should have done, what it should have snapped into position. There we go. Now it's in the proper position. There we go. Yep, that's what I wanted. Okay, that's what I wanted. Okay, so there we go. So it turns out that the accessory piece here, which is designed to pop off, in the box it was floating freely here, but that's not what it's supposed to do. It's supposed to snap into place there. See, does this move? No, it does not. You know, the sad thing about it is this actually bounces up higher than it did on the crane. Because look what happens when I trigger the crane. And I made a big deal out of it at the time too. Watch this. You see the difference? And weight has absolutely. I would actually venture to say that the Trigger Machine Splash's arm is actually heavier than it is on Trigger Machine Crane. I would say it's a lot higher. Now, they can still ratchet to the same positions, but it's just a case of, you know, how much higher that goes compared to that one. I don't know why, because the spring is identical. I don't know. Maybe there wasn't enough room for the spring or something? Be my guess. Okay. So anyways, enough about comparisons. Let's talk about comparisons. So this can extend outwards significantly more than it does on the crane, and I'm pissed off. Because this moved, I think that was like not even half an inch, literally not half an inch for the crane. And let's get these lined up here, and oddly they're the same length or whatever it is. But yeah, the distance that the splash extends is, like, how far it extends is farther than this extends. But it's just, this is just naturally longer or whatever it is. The arm, the white section here is longer than the equivalent on the splash. So that's the difference. So that's why this can actually stick out slightly farther. Does the hose move? No, the hose does not move. I could have sworn it did. I could have sworn the hose pointed downwards. Well, I guess, like, ideally, like, you've got the hose right here, and then you activate the thing, and then the water or the foam or retardant or whatever comes out of here instead. At least that's what it shows on the box. Let's see, where is it? Yeah, it's right here. You can see on the box. I can't see what I'm doing. You can see here the spray, I'll say, is coming out of the lower section. The red section is just showing that it's not coming out of the tip of the hose right there. So that's the difference right there. I don't know why they did it that way. They just did. Honestly, I think it worked out better on the, what were you called? What Russia were you? Fire Russia? Was it Firefighter Russia? I think it was just Fire Russia. I think the Fire Russia carried it out better. Just saying. I gotta really tell this is not one of my better unboxings because I'm just blah 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 blah, and God, look how long I've taken. And yes, once again, I like that they've got an actual, like, handheld fire extinguisher look here. I do actually like that. Just like with the Fire Russia, I also liked it when they did that. Coincidentally, the Fire Russia, when you plug it into Tokyo O, when you turn it into Tokyo O Fire, it actually the actual, like, storage tank or whatever is actually bigger on the was it Tokyo O Fire than it is on this thing. So was it called Tokyo O Fire? Yeah, Tokyo Fire. So there you go. But this time, it does not have a little accessory vehicle that comes out. Instead, it's got this thing right here. So that's the difference. Something I noticed earlier is that the what are these called? Why do I always forget? The strobe lights. I'm sorry. I'll say the Trigger Machine strobe lights or whatever it is. These are molded in red. Okay, it's the identical red to all the other red that's on here. Okay, so it's molded in red. Why am I making a big deal out of this? Well, the reason I'm bringing it up is because on the crane, very clearly it was molded in a different color and then it was painted red. If I had to guess, I would say that it was originally molded in white and then it was painted red. Which, believe it or not, I actually forgot to mention in the crane and drill unboxing. I forgot to mention that. Oh yeah, by the way, the strobe lights are actually painted red, which, again, with all of the Trigger Machines, all of them have these strobe lights. In the case of Trigger Machine Ichigo here, it's molded in PVC. So, like, okay, I understand why they molded it because it's nice and sharp. Oh wait, they could totally have molded it in transparent ABS plastic, and called it good. For Nigo and Sango, it's the exact same thing. These are molded in white and then they're painted red. Why weren't they molded in, or no, correction, they're molded in gray or black? They're molded in black, I'm sorry. So these things are originally molded in black and then they're painted red. And that's such a thing that just drove me crazy. Like, just mold it in transparent. Just make it transparent red. You never have to think about it. You never have to worry about that. But no, they insisted on painting them and making them solid red. These are two perfect examples right here. Actually, all of them, right? Yeah, all of them. With the exception of the Trigger Machine Biker, which, yeah, I can understand why those are in kind of places where you can't really mold them in a different color. They could easily have molded these in transparent red and avoided painting them altogether. Hell, it would have added to distinctiveness to make it, because, like, if you look at Trigger Machine Splash, it disappears right there. That's where your strobe lights are supposed to be on the back, which you can only see when it's an arm, by the way, you know. But then, here's the other thing. These two, what can you call it here on the front? These are also strobe lights. And they should, because they flash, they actually flash kind of an orange color in the show, you know, with the model or whatever it is. And then, on Crane, again, molded in white, they didn't even bother to paint these two. See these little bumps right here? That one there, and then the one there? Those are strobe lights in the show, but they don't even bother with the toy. They don't even bother painting them red. If they'd been transparent to begin with, you wouldn't have to worry about painting them, and you wouldn't even have to worry about molding them into a different color. Even if it was transparent red on solid red, I guess it'd be opaque red, whatever, the transparent would still stick out. And you wouldn't have to add any paint or anything underneath it. In fact, when it came to Mashin Sentai Kira Major, if you take a look at Mashin Fire, which, by the way, fire truck, by the way, if you take a look at Mashin Fire, it turns out it's got a lot of transparent red pieces on it, which is kind of the gimmick of the toys or whatever. But it's got a bunch of transparent red pieces on it, and you can very much tell when it's transparent. Again, perfect opportunity for transparent pieces, and they just chose not to. It's lazy. Yeah, it's lazy, because these are things, because look at this. This is Trigger Machine Ichigo, alright, and it's already covered in red plastic and red paint for the stripe right here. That stripe is painted on, you know. And then, and also the trigger. The trigger, which is totally hidden in shadow, the trigger is also molded in regular red plastic. And then, if you tell me that this has strobe lights on it, you know, police strobe lights, where are they located? They took the time to paint headlights on it, but this red just kind of looks like not a fender. It looks like a spoiler. You know, one of those aerodynamic wings that you find on the back of cars or whatever, which, by the way, that's the special feature of Trigger Machine Ichigo, is it's designed for speed. You know, that's why they got that thing right there. It should be transparent, just so that it can be distinctive when it's PatKaiser. So it can be distinctive when it's a trigger machine by itself. But it's not. It's just, it ends up being, well, it's just a thing. There's no, it's just a race car with a spinny thing on the front, and you don't notice anything about it otherwise. Perfect opportunity for transparent plastic, and they don't do it. They could even have gone so far as to make them all orange. They could have made them orange. They could have made them red. They could have made them blue. You know, police vehicles, they could have made them blue. Some, like military security, oftentimes is green. There are any number of colors they could have used that they have used in the past. They just chose not to. They made them solid and then they painted them. They wasted paint on it. How long have I been going on this? 17.5 minutes. Ava, what's wrong with you? Okay, let's get this thing into the versus changer. As I stated earlier, Trigger Machine Splash is technically a trigger machine. You have to treat it like a trigger machine. But the weird thing about it is, like, it's possessed by the Lupinranger. So that thing that I went on about earlier with the Magic Dial Fighter about you have to hold it. For the Lupinranger, they load them this way. And then for the PatRanger, you hold it this way and you load them on this way. Well, technically, yeah, you have to load it up this way. So, yeah, whatever. Splash! Oh, right. That was a little louder than usual. Sounds like a jet engine going overhead. I kind of expected a siren or a klaxon of some kind, or no, I guess those are kind of the same thing. But on the other hand, even though I thought it was hilarious at the time, I think that's what they were trying to do with this thing. Like, it wasn't the sound of hydraulic pistons. I think that sound that it makes is actually the sound of like a traffic horn. I think that's what it was supposed to be, and I completely missed it. By the way, why would you use the sound of a horn when it's driving around versus the sound of hydraulic arm moving about or something like that? Just saying. Also, the trigger feels kind of nice. Feels different. They're like two different plastics for the triggers. I don't know. It's weird. I'm not sure. It's not PVC. I mean, it's obviously the same mold, just in a different color. But okay. Anyways, let's get you onto the battlefield. Which way do we twist? That's such a strange sound, although it does sound like water running, you know, so no big deal.
A little longer than a few minutes later.
Boy, this video is running really, really long, and I've gotten so many interruptions. I think I said that already. But anyways, I'm actually kind of glad that I decided to separate Magic and Splash from the rest of the box, because like there have been so many interruptions, and there's actually been more than one occasion where I've actually had to open this thing up and oh wow, look at that. I just noticed in the instructions here for Splash. Oh, that's something else I forgot to mention. Just like with Trigger Machine Crane, you can, this thing does pop off for safety's sake. It doesn't say why. Really? You got a warning on the instructions here? Actually, I have not looked at most of the instructions here, so this is kind of dumb. So basically it says, there's a little warning that you don't want the thing to hit you when you lift it up. Really? Because the kid's going, he's getting hit. Really? That's a warning. There's also, it says something about that. I guess they don't want you to hit yourself with this thing, and then they don't want you to pinch yourself when you put the thing down like this. And I mean, to be fair, yeah, that is kind of a sharp, well, kind of sort of sharp thing right there. So, whatever. Okay, so, anyways, I need to look at the instructions here. Oh, really? They only show, let's see, what would you be called? Oh, that's right. Because it only ever appears as, that's right, because Splash never gets used as a, that's right. Trigger Machine Splash never gets used as a as a standalone. Oh, yes, it does. Oh, oh, okay. So I messed up on something. So, I forgot. Well, okay. For just for the sake of saying that I can do it. Um, let's see. I'm gonna have to do this a couple different ways. So, because this is technically stolen by the or it's owned by the Lupinranger, technically, there is a LupinKaiser Splash, but the issue is that in the show, according to the instructions here, or according to the wiki, Trigger Machine Splash was never used on a Kaiser just by itself. It was always paired up with, let's see, was it always? Let's see. Yeah, it was always paired up with a Magic Dial Fighter. So technically, the combination you're going to be seeing right here is not canon, which feels weird because, like, with trigger with the Magic Dial Fighter, yeah, there is a LupinKaiser Magic, but there is not a LupinKaiser Splash. Technically, there's not. Like, the toy can do it, but it's never in the show. That's weird. Okay, so anyways, let's take this off of here, put that back down, and then there's this thing, which is, how do I do this? Oh yeah, I forgot that this one's really weird. So unlike what just happened with the Magic Dial Fighter, where it actually clamps over or it clips over the hexagon joint right here, with the Splash head design or whatever it is. By the way, I'll just show the head design. There it is, very fuzzy, very low resolution. As opposed to if I pull it back here, oh, now it's in great resolution, it's in focus, but it's too small for you to see. Anyways, underneath, it's not a ratchet joint. It's not the same as this. It's not the same thing. In fact, the only thing, it fits in with a pair of tabs. And you can see right there, there's a pair of tabs. Sorry. There we go. So there's a pair of tabs. There's one to either side, but it sticks in more or less with friction. Don't ask me where they went with this choice. Maybe they did that because, like, they couldn't have the head sticking any taller to where it could, get that kind of thing in there. So when you put it on there, it's not going to feel as solid when you have it attached right there. But trust me, it will be. I can feel it right now. Yeah, it actually does. It does technically tab into place. It's not just friction. It actually is a tab, so it will kind of sort of snap into place. It's a soft snap, but it does snap. So technically, this would be LupinKaiser Splash. And again, this did not happen in the show, but technically, this is LupinKaiser Splash. Kind of like that the fire hydrant is still sitting on the front here like that. And the head is very, very tiny, by the way. Granted, not as tiny as LupinKaiser and PatKaiser ordinarily are, but the head is still small regardless. Actually, you know what? I would say that the head is actually bigger. So yeah, okay. And then, just to match it with Canon, and I believe for Trigger Machine, or no, I'm sorry, for LupinKaiser Magic, is it Splash Magic or Magic Splash? Splash Magic, okay. So for LupinKaiser Splash Magic, because, usually start with the right arm first in the naming and then you move to the left, so it'd be Splash Magic. You want to keep Magic's head, you want to keep LupinKaiser Magic's head is going to stay over here, stay attached. So that is LupinKaiser Splash Magic. This is what it ordinarily shows up. This is what it only ever looked like. Every single time they used Splash, it was in this combined form. So there you go. The head is really tiny, by the way. Very much lacking in presence compared to LupinKaiser Magic. Actually, I kind of like the smaller head. That kind of works for me, and that doesn't have the fins of the standard LupinKaiser or even PatKaiser. It doesn't have that. It's just this little thing here. It's very humble and modest head formation, I'll say. So, there you go. There's LupinKaiser Splash Magic. Now, because Trigger Machine Splash is technically a trigger machine and technically the property of the Patrangers, except that they never ever used it, technically it is possible to make PatKaiser Splash. And that's what I'm going to do. So even though PatKaiser Splash never happened in the show, never ever happened in the show, I'm going to do it anyways. So the only trigger machine we're going to be using is Trigger Machine Nego, which is on the left arm. Splash goes on the right arm. Get on there. I suppose I should do a detailed view here. So that, and then these two panels fold out. They're ordinarily at a 45 degree, and you fold them out like that. And then you take the head, and you take the top of the head, and you flip it around 180. I don't know why it is they did it that way. Well, I do know. It's like, why'd they even bother? You know. And then put this. Does this actually peg into the front? Well, it kind of sort of rests there, but only for convenience. And there, technically, you have PatKaiser Splash, which would be canon if the LupinKaiser had, or the Lupinranger had not been carrying on to this for as long as they did. Like, technically, this should have been a PatRanger, PatKaiser limb, but it wasn't. But anyways, there it is. Okay, now let's talk role reversal here. Really? And what would happen if the PatRanger got their hands on the trigger machine, or on the magic dial fighter? Then you would end up with PatKaiser Splash Magic. Yeah, that's it, Splash Magic. And literally the only difference between LupinKaiser Splash Magic and PatKaiser Splash Magic, literally the only difference is the knee guards. That's literally the only difference between them. Look, LupinKaiser Splash Magic, PatKaiser Splash Magic. That's literally the only difference. Right there. That's it. That's the only difference between them, is that panel right there. So if the PatRanger ever got their hands on the on the magic dial fighter, that would be the only difference between them, right there. It's weird, but yeah, there you go. There you go. Now, according to the unofficial English-speaking wiki for all things Super Sentai and Power Rangers, there was a photograph of PatKaiser Splash, which you can see right over here. So obviously, they had the ability to do it. They just, for whatever reason, it was the writing specifically. The writers decided that Trigger Machine Splash would go to the Lupinranger. So technically, this is canon, except they never put it on screen. I mean, it's the equivalent of like Gal Cracker or, it's either Gal Cracker or Gal Muscle Cracker or Gal Muscle Shark and Tiger. Like, we have photographs of it, so we know that they tested it. They actually did that. They were planning to put in the show, they just never did. So in the case of PatKaiser Splash, it's exactly the same scenario. We have photographic evidence that, yeah, they were indeed planning to use PatKaiser Splash, but as far as the writing of the show is concerned, this is not canon. So, like, the toys can do it, but you just never saw it happen in the show. Let me see, according here to the wiki, PatKaiser Splash was never used by PatRangers in the show. However, this formation can be seen in the toy version. There you go. So, not bad. Not bad. I think this kind of gets hampered by the fact that it's just blatantly a reissue or a remold. Technically, a remold. This is a remold of this. And I think like the difference between this and this is that this, and I said it at the time, does not make a lot of sense in terms of being a, like as a trigger machine, it's fine, but what does a crane and a drill have to do with the police? It has nothing to do with police. Nothing whatsoever. As opposed to Splash, where, yeah, fire, that makes sense. Yeah, absolutely. If this had been like an ambulance or like the bomb squad or something like that, yeah, this would have made sense. But this seems fine. Like a fire response. Yeah, absolutely. Fire and I mean, you usually like a medical situation or whatever it is, you'll have EMTs and fire personnel are trained in emergency medical situations. So absolutely it makes sense for the Pat Ranger to have access to a fire truck, fire equipment. That absolutely makes sense. I've got no problem with that whatsoever. It's kind of crane where it gets weird. It's like, why do they have a crane and then why do they have a drill? That doesn't make sense. But this does. Quite frankly, I would have preferred this to be the second versus vehicle that the Pat Ranger got their hands on, but instead it was the third one. Oh wait, that's right. They didn't get their hands on it at all because it was stolen by the Lupinranger. Ugh. So, anyways, yeah, I've got no problem with honestly of the two that are in this box, or let alone that because they were released at the same time. Of the two that were released in the third wave, really, I think I prefer Splash more, just because like it does some interesting things, and yay. Ironically enough, this time it's actually the Dial Fighter where I've probably got the most amount of complaints about. Again, it's the dirigible. It's got this the canopy should be down here, but it's not. It's up here. Like I don't care if the red stripe goes all the way or not. I don't care about that. And then it's got a mace. I don't know why, but it does. It's like, what exactly can you do with a dirigible? What can you do with that? I don't. Honestly, I don't know. And then the other thing, calling it magic, well, it certainly has a lot of missiles in it, so there's some genuine Itano circus happening there. Now, to be fair, the fact that they've got a question mark on the front here, okay, that's funny. I don't know. This is a weird one. Honestly, I think I got this more because it's. I hesitate to say that this is the Kachiki origami all over again because like I don't want to summon that thing. I don't want to think about that thing. But like the weird thing about the Kachiki origami is like by itself, the Kachiki origami, which I still have to this day, it's actually sitting on the shelf over there, and I don't want to take the time to go fishing for it. Like, oh right, fishing for a Kachiki. Do you see what I accidentally did there? Okay, so like the problem I had with the Kachiki origami is that it was by itself, it was garbage. It's just absolute unquestioned garbage, and also the gimmick that they tried to integrate into it was also garbage, and then the combined form where it turned into what was it called, Shinkano? Oh crap, I forgot what it's called. Okay, Kajiki Shinkano. I thought that's what it was. So like Kajiki Shinkano, there's just some garbage on its back, and then the helmet looks really really neat, you know. So like Kachiki Shinkano was just kind of sort of acceptable, and they had a really neat weapon in the forms of the um, oh, what do they call those double-sided swords? Which are actually not, they're not, it's not a real weapon. There was no such thing as a double-sided sword, but they gave it one anyways. I can't think of what it was called. So anyways, I kind of feel like the Magic Dot Fighter is kind of the same in my mind. Although I don't hate this thing anywhere near as much as I did the Kajiki origami. I think that's kind of the difference. So like I'm not ranting about this just by itself. There's some questionable choices that were made, the cockpit, and these are hollow, and what the fuck is this? To be fair, when the Magic Doll Fighter made its debut, it was actually funny when it made its debut. I did genuinely laugh. But like the mecha by itself, like unless you know about those missiles ahead of time, this comes across as really weird. And much like the crane and drill trigger machines, the Magic Dial Fighter doesn't really match up with where the Lupinrangers themed mecha are, where the other dial fighters are. Because, like, yeah, a blimp, an airship, a dirigible, okay, that's fine. But when you compare it to every single other dial fighter specifically, a blimp doesn't really mix in with any of them. They're all air vehicles, yeah, that's fine, but a blimp, a dirigible, they're all high speed. They're all modern day air vehicles. Well, I don't know about the Cyclone, but still, they're all modern day air vehicles of some kind or other. You can kind of picture. Yeah, they kind of exist. There's jets and there's propeller aircraft and there's VTOL and there's helicopters and there's a hammer. I don't know. It's got rocket boosters on the side or something like that. Why is my nose itchy? But then you get to a blimp, which is really slow, which is kind of the way it comes across. It's either a luxury craft or a cargo craft, and the 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 mere existence of airships has been questioned literally ever since the Hindenburg, literally ever since then. And I'm not saying that this is trying to summon the Hindenburg, but like a dirigible or a zeppelin, which by the way technically it's not called a zeppelin, it's called a dirigible. Zeppelin is the name of the company that made the Hindenburg. Just saying. Anyways, this doesn't match up with any of the other dial fighters in much the same way that the trigger machine crane and drill doesn't match up with the other verses or the other trigger machines. Because what does this have to do with police? What does this have to do with all of the other aircraft? And then that, by the way, that includes the Victory dial fighter as well, which I'll be getting into in the final LuPat catch-up video. Like, what does this have to do with it? The answer is nothing really. So I don't hate this thing as bad as the Kachiki origami. It's just like it doesn't fit. It's more of an whatever kind of thing. It's not until you start talking about LupinKaiser Splash, or no, I'm sorry, LupinKaiser Magic, that's where it shines a little bit more. And much like the Kachiki Shinkano, I almost said Trigger Machine. No, LupinKaiser Magic has a nice helmet design, and I like the kind of the alternate chest design or whatever it is. And the arm is, I honestly, I don't even to this day, I still don't know what to do about that hand. It exists, and I really don't know what to do with that. And I'll say it again. Why is it posed like this? Like Bayformer's Starscream, he's got two thumbs. He can get away with doing this, but this, I I I don't get it. It's so weird. But throwing around um, fish tank aquariums and throwing around playing cards and whatever wacky stuff that the Magic Dial Finder manages. I want to say Magic School Bus so fucking badly, by the way. It's Dial Fighter, the Magic Dial Fighter. It's just so wacky. It's fun, whatever. Um, it's got missile spam that comes out of it, which, oh, I love it. But just honestly, I think I like its combined form a lot more than I do the Dial Fighter just by itself. So, eh. And as for combined forms, yeah, the combined form of this is okay, and it's such an awkward. I don't even know why it is that the writers gave Trigger Machine Splash to the Lupinrangers, so that the only time you only ever saw Splash Magic, you never ever saw Splash by itself in a combined state. I don't know why they did that. Because like the thing about and I might as well say it here, this was the start of the Lupin Ranger having a significant advantage over the Pat Ranger. Literally the last upgrade that the Pat Ranger get is this. This is the last one, and this is introduced mid-series, or no, it's introduced. This is a second wave accessory vehicle. This is the last upgrade they get. I mean, that can hardly be blamed on the toys themselves. I'm more wondering, like, why did the Raiders choose that direction? You know, I mean, you're already giving Lupin Magnum over to the Lupinranger. That should have been their big advantage, their big difference. But then you should have had an equivalent for the PatRanger. You know, it's that thing I was talking about between Trigger Machine, Crane, and Drill, and then the Scissors and Blade Dial Fighters. There's that duality. What you give to one team, you also have to give to the other. But that's not the case here. And again, that is strictly from writing perspective. As toys, yeah, absolutely, you can do PatKaiser Splash if you want to. You could even do PatKaiser. I think it'd be Splash Biker. Yeah, it'd be Splash Biker. Or because like Biker Splash sounds weird, but like technically, yeah, technically you can do PatKaiser Splash Biker if you want to. You know. So, anyways, these are not bad. Neither one of these are bad. Although I question, how well these doors stay closed. That's a little bit of an issue. Um, and I also question the validity of having these hollow on the front and then having them visible on the back. And then, when it's combined together as LupinKaiser Magic. LupinKaiser Magic, then all of a sudden those are reversed. Sound effects are fine. I kind of wish they'd done a little more with Magic's sound effect. But for, let's see, would this have been fourth wave? No, I think these were still third wave. Yeah, these are considered third wave. Yeah. So for third wave, it's kind of an interesting direction. So like, first we had, just one arm of a Kaiser being selected, and then that exact same versus vehicle would serve as a kind of an upgraded blaster for their associated team. And then we came up with the first roleplay weapons, or the first weapons where a versus vehicle would give a weapon to the human scaled ranger team, and then at the same time, the vehicle itself would also come with, not only would it come with a secondary vehicle, but it would be, the accessory vehicle would be, the versus vehicle would become an arm, and then it would also become a handheld weapon at the same time. So that's an interesting way of doing that. And then for the third incarnation of versus vehicles, we end up with, again, aside from the writing thing where these two are always paired together, you end up with a versus vehicle that not only has a feature all by itself, but can actually entirely replace the center vehicle for the first time ever. So you ultimately end up with two versus vehicles, depending on which side you choose, and then Good Striker in the middle, which has a new head design, which is not a versus vehicle in and of itself. So that's kind of an interesting evolution in the direction of where the versus vehicles are going as of the third wave. And quite frankly, neither one of these is bad. They actually kind of good in their individual ways. I neither favor LupinKaiser Magic over LupinKaiser Splash Magic over PatKaiser Splash. I don't really have a preference either way there. So, I think of the two, I think I like this one a little more than I do this one. So, this has been a really weird video. I'm not even going to bother filming the final video for another. It's probably not going to be for another 2 or 3 days before I film that thing. So, yeah. So, Magic Dial Fighter and Trigger Machine Splash. Not bad. I would have preferred to buy these individually rather than in the big box there, but there was actually more advantage to getting these together in that box than there was to getting them individually. So there's a bit of redundancy, but I'll get into that in the next and final video. And so with that, this is AV Unit Voice saying thank you very much for tuning in.